Yeah. Emma, the video feed you can see on YouTube, we just posted the live link on the Facebook page for Klamath Falls.
That's not enough. It just says it's waiting.
Okay. Yeah, I literally just hit launch. So you should see that soon.
Oh, there you are. Okay.
See that. Oh, there might be a delay. She said Alexa's gonna call in for sure.
She said she was going to.
And what is about the status on rec?
I can message him.
Okay.
Like to do, eh?
Oh, thank you.
Oh, man.
So I'm trying to go for a flat top. I did a little bit premature.
Yeah.
Just a tad premature, so it's gonna look awkward for a month or
Ah,
so.
whatever, man.
Then they'll go back in and then I'll have it. I've always wanted to do this. I'm glad my boss thinks it's okay. He didn't
Well, I've
accept
had a
the
flat
package.
top since '97. Last December, I grew out my hair because I got a mohawk from my students on a bet.
Oh, nice.
I raised 2,500 stocks for the homeless and got a mohawk and I said, I'm gonna try growing it out. It was very awkward for the first 3 months.
You see it.
Before we go live, Eric, can
We are live already.
we, okay,
Yeah.
maybe, got a chance to get brief. Somebody, draft resolution.
Oh,
We're good. We're live right now. We can talk about it.
yeah. I just wanted to wait to start until we had everybody who's gonna be here. Will be here. I think we're just waiting on Alexa and then I'm gonna reach out to Rick.
Oh, I just messaged him.
Okay, there we go. So I'll just wait to hear.
With Rex's email, it's been like kicking back to, does he have a new email address?
Yeah, Joey
I
had
got
sent it to
that.
me and I had missed it in the.
Okay,
emails
I was like,
to me.
wait.
So I apologize for that. I'll update that right now. I'll think about it. Oops.
Okay, it sounds like Rick just now got back into town.
Is there a public City of Klamath Falls Wi-Fi? I
There
see your
should-
CKF hub.
Yeah, it should just be CKF Pub.
What's,
Is there a password?
yeah,
Oh,
it's okay.
I don't actually know what the password.
It's okay. Let me just try to use my phone.
Okay. Wow, is that a Lanny shirt?
Yep.
Nice. I've seen them live a couple of times. They're really good.
I saw them live once in Portland.
Portland, was that when they had the video screen set up,
Mhm.
the 2-level? Nice.
Yeah, like 3 years ago,
Okay.
3, 4 years ago, yep.
Did they bring the piano out during that tour?
To be honest, I only remember like walking in.
Must have been a crazy night.
It was a good
Yeah.
concert. Well, that's how all concerts are, right? You just, you're there, you're thriving, you're living your best life.
Too short when I was in college. Right?
By chance, did you happen to print out, the resolution?
No, I was just gonna put it on the screen. I could print it out though if you'd like.
That's okay, I can still get mine, but I'm sending.
Okay. Members. All right, I fixed Rex's email in the group thing, so we will not have the issues. Right. No one else has shown up physically, right?
I don't think Wakaya's back yet.
Okay, I'm gonna go lock the door upstairs.
Emma, are you visiting your mom? Are you still out? Are you
Yeah,
still?
I'm in Seattle.
Oh, nice.
I'm in my mom's tool shed. Yeah, it's good. It's nice up here. It's so different that after, 9 months in the high desert, all the moisture and the different plants they have here, it's just like so exciting to be the different ecosystems.
Awesome. Enjoy every second.
Yeah.
Maybe we're gonna need a quarantine. We'll see. You from around here, Chris?
I am not.
Okay.
No, I'm an out-of-towner. Came here in 2014
Oh, nice.
for work. Moved around a little bit. I was a military brat. Moved around Georgia, North Carolina, Washington, Georgia, Hawaii, Georgia, North Carolina, Tennessee.
Georgia's country.
What's that?
You love Georgia, didn't you?
That's where my mom's family's from, and my dad, he came to Georgia for the military. Found my mom and so bounced around, and Georgia predominantly, most of my life. I would say probably 11 or 12 out of the first 18 years of my life.
Brett, Alexa's trying.
Oh, maybe I just missed.
Oh, she's trying to zoom in, and then Rex just asked for the Zoom link.
Okay,
Um,
here, I'll send that real fast.
It's good to see everybody.
I can't believe it's already November, basically. Mm-hmm.
So I've not seen Alexa pop up on the waiting room yet. Really.
okay.
I'm gonna shoot her the link real fast again.
Okay, I'm letting her know.
All right. It's done and sent. Oh, there we go. There's Rec. Pop up any second now. Rec, can you hear us? Alexa still trying?
Yeah, and Russ is sure that he's-
Oh, there he is. All right, so he's on. He's just muted himself. So Rec, you just need to go ahead and unmute yourself. There you go.
Okay.
There you go. We can hear you now.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just getting back into town, so by the time we meet up next time, I should have it penciled in.
All right.
Okay, maybe we should just get started.
All right, sounds
Alexa
good.
says her Wi-Fi is not working. She's trying to connect to her Gorge overnight first. So-
Okay. So, task force, the first item on the agenda today is finalizing the draft resolution going before council. That is penciled in for the November 16th council meeting. Council is ready to receive that. Emma, are you still on the line? Can you hear us all right? So we sent out that information that you had gotten together to council earlier this week. No feedback or anything yet. Yeah. So people here. Sorry, I didn't need this. I don't need that one anymore. We just wanted to do a final look over of the resolution to see if there was any proposed language changes.
Have you sent us an updated one of that?
I sent out a Google Docs link, I think, early last week. The one change that was made, the interim meeting, was that last week?
Yeah.
Or the week prior to that, was we broke out the language a little bit to make it clear that we're talking about both economic inequity and racism, and how they kind of, the interplay, if there's any there. So we just made it 2 sentences long, but we added 2 whereases. Did you have the link, Lottie?
I think I'm pulling it with.
Okay, I can send it to you
If I have it.
All right. All right. Yeah, looks like there's some people looking up right now. I'm gonna go ahead and make that bigger.
Yeah, go ahead and make it bigger. And one of the questions was to add bullying on there, and we kind of came as a decision that bullying is its own entity, I think. People combat that different ways. I know during the education, we have different programs, so I think that was,
Okay.
to leave it just like this was pretty good.
So is this what we will be presenting to?
So the way that it works is that you guys are the task force, so you direct staff to make a presentation to council. So I will be presenting this to council, so I'll be up in front of council. They will receive tomorrow. Is tomorrow Thursday or Friday? Tomorrow's Thursday. So this Friday, we will send out this finalized resolution, and they'll get an opportunity to read through it over the next week.
Okay,
So they'll know what the language
okay.
is at that point.
I just have 2 possible additions in at least race-based disparities exist in our community in health, housing, environment, education, and economic outcomes.
What paragraph?
It's
the
right here.
1 to 3rd paragraph.
Okay.
Oops, I might be accidentally updating your Google Maps, sorry. Should we also add criminal justice system or legal justice system? That could give them one more opportunity to dispute or request data to back it up.
So-
And then also,
Mhm.
again, this is coming from the that original task force.
Oh, the
Durham.
Durham, yeah. North
and
Carolina.
one thing that's important that I've noticed, especially here, and I don't know how to work that in, is our public history,
Mhm.
acknowledging our failure to accurately report history, basically. So
We do have history mentioned in
Is-
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Okay, yes, that's true. So I guess then the only addition, should we consider adding the criminal legal justice? And that could be in both racism and economic inequity.
That's up to the task force to discuss. We do have, what I will say is that the data that we received from the state economist does illustrate the categories we have here right now, but we would need to pull information from our police department if you wanted to have data that would back up the claim that there's racial disparities with justice outcomes. That is information that our police department has indicated they're willing to give us. If you all want.
Absolutely, I think so.
Yeah. What does everybody think about adding justice?
I think it's a good indicator just for myself. So.
Okay. Emma, can you hear us all right?
Yeah, it's a little hard to hear Joey, but the rest of you I can see me here, okay. I would say that I support adding it, but if that means pushing the vote back another 2 weeks, at that point, I'm on the fence.
I don't think, so just thinking procedurally here with the way that resolutions work, is that they might, I don't think that they would push back considering our passing the resolution any further. What might happen though is that they could, I wouldn't direct them to do this. I'm just simply, presenting it before them. But if they ask, well, have you all seen and observed justice outcomes? So like we're talking about policing essentially. We don't at this time as the task force, we haven't requested that information from our PD. So it might just be that item just might be a harder sell. So it might be a situation where that would get taken out of like council might say, we're comfortable passing this resolution, but we would like to not include this item. Potentially, that's just how things could potentially play out.
Yeah, if we're thinking it that way, maybe we should include it. And if council says, okay, maybe not, it's, it's like a win-win situation. If we include it, it moves forward. If we include it, it doesn't move forward. Okay, so.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm looking at the word environment. Doesn't that embody everything that we have in Klamath County? Couldn't that fall under the,
I think when we had added that, I was more about talking about in cases where there's like natural disasters or pollution or something like that, that there would be disproportionate outcomes based off of race. I think that was the idea behind that, which the state report says it speaks to a little bit more than just like the environment as in just like the area you're living. But
I think of that in terms of like, for example, widespread support of Jordan Cove, even though tribes strongly opposed the project. Our water issues could probably have environmental, talk of environmental. And not just irrigation, we have water quality issues here.
so when people read it, it's going, they're gonna, read it how they want to perceive it. So that's how
I see what
maybe
you're
that could be the umbrella about the environment. So they should constitute all of what we're talking about. That's how I read it, but that doesn't, if you want to be more specific, we can add that.
Oh, are you saying, do you think we just need to make it more specific in the?
Well, yeah, that's what we're talking about. We want to be more specific and
Okay.
add the data, and then let council decide if we need to add it or.
I feel like it should be there. We should request the data. I know anecdotally, you could, if they would be willing to speak, you would have lots of people willing to share their experiences with our law enforcement. Unfortunately, that's usually county sheriff.
So with, what I can do now is we could just open the floor to having a discussion about what sort of information we'd like from our police department that you all would be interested in. And then I can see if I can get that for the presentation, because the presentation's on November 16th, so we have some time potentially to consider that further.
Would they be able to quantify, but this is the start of somebody getting into the system, a minor offense. A black or brown person versus a white person with a well-paid attorney. Black or brown person gets a minor offense, a DUI. They're going to go into the system. That could have impacted their job. They're going to fall behind on whatever their fines and fees are. That's going to snowball. They're going to serve jail time. But a person, likely, I'm assuming here, with a white person with a lawyer, is going to have a much different outcome within our legal justice system than, so that's the kind of data that I would like to see.
So I think that data we would have to request from the county, because that's county court level, but we don't capture that here, although I'm going to stop myself there. We do have, petty level offenses like you're talking about, so like traffic stop data. So we could pull data by, because we do collect racial data when we conduct poll or stops, so we could absolutely get that information. What we would have a hard time measuring is if it escalates beyond those kind of municipal court issues.
I guess, we can start with who they pull over.
Could you also get the race of the police officer that's stopping?
I believe we should be able to get that as well.
That would be great.
We could also do statistics based off of like the racial makeup of our police force as well, and gender makeup of the police force as well. I'm gonna start making a list of this actually.
Yeah.
That'd be interesting.
Your audio just dropped out. I can't hear you guys.
Can you not hear us now?
We can hear you.
Okay.
There used to be a speaker right here that we had right here.
Oh yeah, that was the phone system, and I don't know where they moved it to. Because we had called Emma and them in last time. Yeah, I know what you're talking about, the hexagon.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm not sure where they put that. Okay, docs.
You're good now. Where are the mics located at? Just out of curiosity.
The only mic's on the front of the TV, unfortunately.
Okay, so that's why Joey's already still here, because she's in the back.
Yeah.
I'll speak louder.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Racial makeup. Actually, I'm just gonna put this up here so we all can see it in writing. That's gonna be better. I'm gonna share my screen with you all. I'm gonna change it to the empty Word document. Can you see the new empty Word document, Emma? All right.
So what language did you want to add? What specific language is the legal system or the?
Race. And I think this is both racism and economic inequity. It creates unfair disadvantages and drives, sorry. Race-based disparities exist in our community in health, housing, environment, education, and economic outcomes. So we need to add environment, education, justice, criminal justice system, and economic outcomes.
So Eric, were you saying that the sentencing information would be difficult because that's not a city?
We could do traffic offenses. We would be able to capture that, but anything beyond that would be hard for us to get because we'd have to go to the county.
Yeah, I mean, even if we say, hey, look, we only care about about arrests that were made within city limits. We want to see the sentencing outputs of those. That would still be hard.
Well, it just depends on the crime. Because our municipal court, essentially covers petty crimes, which I believe is like shoplifting and minor traffic infractions. I think once it starts going to like driving without a license, that's when I believe it starts to escalate, or driving without insurance rather. There's kind of a line, and then any crime above that line just goes to the county.
That's a shame, because I feel like, what about drug possession or those kind of drug offenses? I think
I can
that's where you see a lot.
get more information for the group about specifics, just generally about what muni court deals with. And then in the meantime, I could just request as much information as possible. Arrest by race.
I mean, there are other ways to get information as well. I mean, as a journalist, I could always, file a Freedom of Information Act request with the Klamath County Court. So, I mean, if we ever get, I'm not suggesting we do that now, but if there ever is a piece of information that we're dying to have, that's any kind of public government agency, there are ways to do it just as citizens that we could consider.
Would it be quicker for her to put the FOIA in?
You might want to just do that, Emma, for the county already. And then I'll just start working tomorrow with the information internally. I can just start pulling whatever I can get. And then, so that's a list of things I'll start to work on. I'm going to hop back over to the draft resolution. Joey, so you're recommending we add justice to both the race disparities and the economic inequity?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just gonna add it before education. All right. There are other things.
Yes. So do we just want to go line by line? Let's go to the fourth one. We all agree. Let's move to the fifth.
Yeah, I think that'll be easier for.
Good. My brain's bouncing back and forth.
Yeah, so I think it'll be best for us to just do what you suggested, going line by line by line.
So whereas long-standing economic inequity also worsens racism.
Yes.
Should we say criminal justice just to make it clear that we're talking specifically about the criminal justice system and not the larger question of justice in society?
Good. That's good.
What do you guys think? I think that's
I
narrowing it down.
Yeah, that's a great idea to just.
I'm half deaf. I can't hear anything she said.
Criminal justice, the criminal justice, instead of just justice, adding criminal justice on there.
Sure.
Just to make it more, because somebody like me will take another word into a different level, so.
All right. So we've added that.
Not for commas.
Yeah, I'm awful at grammar, so I'm glad that you're helping.
Okay, so we're all good with the first line. Then going back to what you had suggested, going line by line for the first point.
This one.
The third and fourth, we had criminal justice, which everybody agreed.
Yes.
So are we on line 5 now?
Yep.
Yes. I agree. I like that.
All right.
This is the most powerful, now that I'm looking at it again. It is so powerful. Are we all in agreement on that one?
I'm good with that. Emma, you good? Legal? Right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm good.
Are we on the American Dream line?
Yes.
Okay.
City of Klamath Falls Drive.
I love this one, and then I listened to a podcast, and I'm not.
My question is just the key wording of American dream, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, my keyword is like this whole American dream. Like, what is the American dream for you, for him, for her, for they, for them? So I think instead of saying embodies the American dream, it should kind of say something else.
I love what you pointed out. Like, how can, like the person who had issue with this before, to say that you're against the American dream or the opportunity for all to have the American dream, but it's really rooted on colonization and settler colonialism, and it's part of racism today. That American dream.
So you're saying we shouldn't have American Dream in there, is that what you're saying?
I'm saying we should.
What should we have in place of it then?
I like the idea, liberty and justice for all, the pursuit of
So we should take American Dream out of it.
opportunity.
We should take American Dream out of it.
Should we replace it with that?
Pursuit of. I think we should take American dream out, but use a different verbiage, such as pursuit of.
Liberty and justice?
Yes, what you had said
I
earlier.
like opportunity, equality, liberty, and justice for all. Like,
I
say the
will,
pledge every morning, so.
I will say that I think that having the American Dream in there communicates some of those things in a way that everybody understands. And it makes it hard to argue against if you're saying that there's an American dream for everybody, right? And that we're trying to achieve that as a community. I think it's just, from my perspective, just as far as like the way it will play with council in particular, that it's going to be a lot easier for council to say, oh yeah, we're behind something that, you know, we're an American community, and we want to make sure that everybody, regardless of their identity and background, is treated like an American. I just think I think it's strong, really strong as far as just how it will play. Emma?
So, yeah, my 2 cents on this is that I personally don't have like the phrase American Dream, because I do think that's a lot of really colonialists.
All right.
And like, you know, pick yourself up by your bootstraps, and if you don't succeed, it's your own fault. And I don't know, for me, it has a lot of baggage. But I see what you're saying about it being sort of appealing to some members of council. But I also feel that if we just simply remove it and say that the city of Klamath Falls strives to safeguard equal opportunity, this resolution might age a little bit better. Like, that American Dream line might stick out in 10 or 15 years when people look back at this. It's a possibility, because maybe that kind of American Dream talk will be beyond that possibly.
All right. Was there other language we wanted to replace, or do we just want to kind of, the city of Klamath Falls tries to be a community that embodies, or that
I mean, the simplest way is
safeguards?
tries to be a community that safeguards equal opportunity for all. But that's, if we want to put something in there that's a little more about like what our aspirations or goals are as a community, we could. And if I'm overruled on the American Dream thing, then I'm fine with that too. But
No, I think there's a strong consensus at this point. I just wanted to see if you wanted to see if you all wanted to replace it with anything else.
Community that safeguards equal, the pursuit of, okay, wait. Okay, that's, the city of Clement Falls strives to be a community that safeguards equal opportunity, liberty, and justice for all, or for all of its citizens, regardless of their identity or background.
Equal opportunity
Liberty
and justice for all of its citizens, regardless of their identity or background. Right.
Because that still gets in there. I think it still drives home the point of exactly what you're trying to say, but it's not so,
I like it, like liberty being in there. I feel like that, captures some of those same sentiments about freedom and stuff that many more conservative Clemackians are into.
All right. Next slide.
Is that the clientele that we're trying to reach out with this thing? Is the conservative client, the conservative Clemathians there, Emma?
No, I just think that it's good if this is a document that really sort of speaks to everybody. There are a lot of conservative peoples in Klamath Falls. I think most of them would say that they are not racists. And so why not create a document they can get excited about and join up with us?
Sure.
I like that next line.
Any comments, or should I move on?
Have we defined equitable access? What does that mean exactly?
We do not have a definition for equity in the resolution.
Okay. So maybe something we need to address. We're going to talk about it so much.
Yeah. We can put a whereas, something to the effect of whereas equity is blank. And then
Do we
define it.
have that kind of definition in our mission?
Yeah.
It is in the mission statement, so we could just
Where
copy it and then.
Yeah.
Yes.
Does anybody have that mission statement on hand?
I have a hard copy, but you wanted to copy and paste.
Well, I'll just type it. I will
I can
make,
try to find a copy and
I will
paste.
make
Was
edits.
it a Google Doc?
Because it
No, it
won't be-
wasn't Google Doc. We made it here together. Vision and Mission.
Yeah.
Here's a hard copy.
I think I have, no, this is it, agenda.
So I will type that up and then let everybody.
On the vision and mission, Chris, we kind of defined it.
What's that?
We defined what inequity is.
Okay.
So.
I must admit, man, like I'm outside on
Do you have an
everything.
extra? I was gonna bring you an extra copy.
I think that.
Oh, you know what? You can have this one because this is what,
Was presented.
yeah, this is what Ruben,
So what, Chris, what I did was added Mayor Westfall's letter that defines these tough discussions that we're going to have within us and everybody else. And then we did our vision and mission and what we wanted to declare.
Yeah.
So they are very clear about what we're trying to accomplish.
Oh, this is the one that I came out against, yeah, okay.
Absolutely. Good questions, that's good. Yeah. So
something changed? Are you?
Man, I just need just refreshing on it. So everything goes in and out, and the amount of information I've taken in the last couple of weeks is quite substantial. So I have to get briefed on a lot of stuff.
I'm pretty sure you don't really, to me, I needed evidence that, okay, so this is what we're, our direction. That's why I grabbed all the news articles, all the Carroll Westfalls, and it basically told us to ask those questions too.
Okay.
Kind of.
So wait, so hold on. So you gathered a bunch of information and did you post that? Did you put that in?
No, I had it for us,
Oh.
members
yeah,
only,
yeah,
just in
yeah,
case
yeah.
they say, well, why is it?
That was sent to council earlier
Yeah.
this week.
Oh.
Yeah, it was a packet of information, as well as the draft version of this resolution, just so they could start thinking about,
Because they wanted evidence, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's right. And Emma, we got that, and all of us kind of put our heads together, so.
Okay. And all that evidence is with city
Yeah.
council now?
But they emailed it to all of us too.
They did.
If you go back, yeah, if you go back to your emails, there's a packet from Emma, search Emma's.
And it's in Google Doc. Was it no, that was.
I think it was a PDF.
yeah, it was just a PDF that Emma had sent out 3 weeks ago, I think, to the whole group.
Uh-huh.
We can finish this, but that's something too.
Yeah, sorry.
We need,
I'm
I mean,
just-
no, I want to circle back to, do we need more data? Do we need?
That looks good now, where,
So I just lifted this verbatim from the mission statement that y'all came up with. Should we move this whereas to earlier in the resolution?
that's what I was gonna think of, maybe even like line 2 or 3.
Yeah, before we hit line.
Yeah, maybe starting with the definitions.
Yeah,
Text.
What's that?
Yeah.
Text right down here.
that's why I was like, I need to bring a laptop this time.
And I walked out of the office and all that, so found it.
No.
My wife said, you better be home for dinner, so I said, I'm out of here, bye.
All right. So we are now on line, now for be it resolved.
Was there something in what we presented to city council that we could also include here as well on the now therefore be it resolved that we, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? I think,
I just,
Oh,
I
I
think
paired-
just gave my, these ones are on mine. I think I just gave it to Chris.
So in the, Lottie, in the draft resolution text from the letter that you all wrote to council, you talked about the statement of incorporating equity as an objective in everything we do, and you listed some things. I included that in the next line.
Okay,
Yeah. We pledge to adopt equity as a guiding principle for our planning, economic development, strategic planning, budgeting, and other decision-making processes in order to build an inclusive and cohesive community.
okay.
Have we even looked into whether it's feasible or not to base like a whole budgeting decision around equity for a city?
Yeah, so the way that budgeting typically works in cities is that in the state of Oregon, you have a public body. It's city council and then 5 members of the public. And the 5 members of the public, in conjunction with council, helped adopt visioning, which is called a city vision and a mission statement. And in the vision and mission statement, there are strategic priorities that kind of come from that discussion, which then show up at the front end of the budget. So like when we make budgeting decisions, we want to make sure that we are doing things. So like, typically your core is public safety, and we're a safe community with all of our budgeting decisions. that we're financially sustainable city. So there's a bunch of different terms for that, like fiscal stewardship, what have you, that we're a responsive government. So that would just fit into kind of those strategic priorities. So that doesn't mean that there is, with strategic priorities, that there's amounts of funding attached to each of those priorities, but it's when you go through the budgeting process. So typically that is actually held in this room. The people will say, okay, so they'll look at it on a fund level. So the city budget's big monster of a budget.
Yeah.
So everything's broken down into funds. So you'll have like public safety, the airport, streets, and what have you. So when the public and the council are meeting, per state law, they'll go down and say, is the things we're doing, is it generating public safety? Are we being fiscal stewards of the public, the public trust? Are we being equitable? It would just be another step that they would have to go through whenever they're making the decisions.
Any questions on that second to last one? Anybody?
I'm good. I reckon Emma?
I like it. I just wanted to compliment whoever put cohesive community in there. I think that's a really good point. Being inclusive is great, but being cohesive sounds so cozy, and I just love that idea.
All right, last.
Okay, so let's talk about eradicating systemic racism. What's the measuring stick for that? Is there one?
Oh, that's the last one.
The work of eradicating systemic racism. How do you even measure that? How do you go about presenting that to the city council? How do you go about presenting that to the local community?
Well, that is why I think it's important to help convey that this is the starting off point, because unless they are willing, in my mind, to sign this resolution, then we are wasting our time.
Yeah.
We are here just for show.
Okay, so let's say they passed the resolution. What's the measuring stick? For
Well, I think what you brought up is that you had misread the Durham report.
Mhm.
They did
I don't
not
got
have,
that at
they
all.
did not have data. They outlined all of the areas that needed quantification.
Oh, okay.
And
So they
so-
did not have data behind 2 years of them gathering information, is that right?
Not that it's anything deeper than what we would have the opportunity to do
Oh, okay.
right now. So it's basically, it's the start, how I look at it. We were unable to start, except for what we do have access to. We as a group could not sit down and collect all of this data immediately. We have limited access to
I don't know
some
if that's
reporting out
necessarily
there.
true
Well,
at all, actually. I think, to my knowledge, we can gather as much information, specifically when it comes to like police reform and things like that. We can gather all the information we want to, present before city council and come up with a
We
resolution.
can gather what's already out there.
Yeah.
And we do, to Chris's point,
But
what
I
we do.
guess, hold on, before I finish,
Yeah, but
I guess what you're saying is though, none of that's possible without doing the resolution first. And my thing is let's say they do pass a resolution, say we do start dealing with data, what is the measuring stick for erasing systemic racism? Do we have one? We currently do not have one.
We would base that on, well, we want to see it, for example, the police reporting would be a great place to start. I think that's secondary. We start making our objectives that, okay, this is the very first step of all of our collective action items. Then we're going to come back, work on these observable, measurable action items. That's how we measure success or failure.
So we're trying to get a baseline right now.
We're trying to get the city to admit, and I don't know what you are, but for me as Indigenous climate,
I don't know what I am
to
either.
get
So,
this,
I legitimately
We do.
don't, I don't know my dad, so.
to get the city to acknowledge this pain is a massive, massive step. I think about it and it makes me want to cry, and it gives me goose.
Okay, but we still haven't outlined that we do not have a measuring stick for eradicating systemic
So
racism.
I want to interject and say that we do have a baseline of data, which is the disproportionate economic outcomes from the
Okay.
state, which is included in the report. So we do know objectively.
So we do have a baseline we're going to.
We do, right? So we do know, for instance, that indigenous, Black, and Hispanic home ownership is less than your average white home ownership rate.
Is that statewide or
That's
just Klamath?
local to Klamath.
Yeah, well, last time,
So we have, yeah, sorry.
just real quick, we're talking about national. Last time I checked, we're the Klamath Falls Equity Committee, not the United States Equity Committee, right? So why are we like looking over national data and we should be looking at local data?
We have Klamath County level data, so we don't, so it's impossible for us to parse that out deeper to Klamath Falls, just the city, but we do have county trends.
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
So we have county trends, so we know what the median income for indigenous, Black, Hispanic people are is for Klamath County.
Yeah.
But the state does not collect economic data lower than the county level.
I got you.
Yeah.
Okay, well, then Klamath County, then fine.
Mhm.
You know, whatever that measurement stick is. I mean, I don't think going about, trying to measure ourselves on a U.S. statistical analysis when we're based right here in Klamath Falls, not the whole U.S. So.
Chris, did you have a chance to look over the information that we sent to the council about the local histories of racism?
I did actually. I'm glad you brought that up. And maybe you or even Joey can help me out with one of the scenarios that seemed to be left out, which was, I think, right after you're saying 3 white dudes freaking went up and shot a couple of Native people. Is that correct?
Yes, that's.
Hold on, let me interject. Let's finish this and then we can get to.
Oh, yeah.
Let's finish this. I don't want to.
Absolutely, yeah.
Let's
do that.
Let's finish this last paragraph.
All right, so we're on the last statement, which is be an even further resolve.
I'm really happy with this clause. I think that, I don't think we need to have a super quantified definition of how deep is deep work, or how do we know when it's eradicated? Because when it comes the day when systemic racism is eradicated, probably it'll be far in the future and we'll know it. I don't think this is a sense of the intention of the city to do better. So I don't think it has to be precisely quantified for this resolution. I think it looks great.
I agree too, but we're gonna get the Chris's or the Bill Adams or the, you name it, people of the world that are going to push back and cannot begin to understand another person's lived experiences, and clearly are unable or unwilling to do so without data. So I like this. It's a great first step, but I realize that we have the majority of the mindset of the pushback that we're getting from Chris or Bill Adams. So I think we need to challenge ourselves somehow to do better. As frustrating as it is to me, and as so simple as it is for me, for someone to say, racism is bad. Let's denounce it. Let's be better.
Who is not saying racism is bad? Who's saying that? You're not saying anything profound by saying racism is bad. Nothing. You're not saying anything.
You're asking for data. And I'm saying that.
You're also
people
saying
just
that
like you
racism is
will
bad. Of
ask.
course it's bad. What? What are you talking about?
I'm good with the last paragraph. Anybody else?
I'm great. I'm good as well. How about Rex?
Brett, you good?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm just here listening.
All right.
All right, so the next step for the resolution is that I will be sending it out to council on Friday, so they'll have the next, between this Friday and November 16th to read over that. And it just goes out with the council packet. We'll have a staff meeting yeah, and then we'll go before them on the 16th once more. All right.
We all good, guys, on that?
Yep.
I really like it. It's where we're heading.
All right, so going back to the agenda, we can either go into other matters. What I put on the agenda is that there were some items that were brought up and brainstormed at the first and second task force meeting about things that the task force would like to do while you guys are in existence, right? So just kind of going over the scope of the task force. There's going to be a task force for as much time as it takes to generate a list of ideas to bring before council of things to do that we can do as a government to improve our communities, economic outcomes essentially across racial categories, right? And then the other thing that you'll all be doing is creating a permanent standing equity committee, rather. So that will be as formal as a body as you can get without being city council in the city. So that will be enacted by ordinance. So some of the things that you probably want to start to be thinking about is how you would like to set that up. So how many members on this committee, what kind of representation that you want to ensure that is secured on the committee, the things that the committee will be considering, and like how often that they're needing to report to council. All of that is up for discussion. So yeah, two things. It's the kind of the ideas that you want council to consider pursuing to make for a more equitable community, and then also how this permanent committee will be set up. So I just wanted to put back on to the agenda is some of the ideas that had come up. I was hoping that Wakaya was going to be with us for this first one, which is Wakaya had communicated over email that there was an idea about talking about what are our strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities in our community for equity, which is kind of paired together with who are already our active equity stakeholders in the community. Because the idea was that you didn't want to, I can't remember who said this, the idea was that you didn't want to duplicate work where you guys could just partner together instead. So for example, Blue Zone's reaching out to you, Joey, and I think it was Emma, potentially about health outcomes, and just having a better community understanding about the disproportionality of health outcomes. I think it was a few meetings ago, we had talked about how Blue Zones was reaching out for stories about.
Yeah, I didn't hear from them. I
Oh,
did
okay.
attend a diversity training, a cultural sensitivity training that happened to have some Blue Zones.
Okay,
There.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood that. Yeah, but Blue Zone was interested for instance. They reached out to us and said that they wanted, or to me, and wanted me to reach out to you all to talk about, what data you all have about just that. Just disproportionality and health outcomes in the community.
They hold a lot of forums, open forums, maybe we can attend or have them in Zoom there. Jesse would talk to as part of that, so we can always get involved.
Maybe we could work on, instead of the whole SWOT analysis, maybe we could kind of figure out what we want for a committee. That's the second and third agenda, right? Item, like how we should form the actual committee through the city. As you were saying that earlier, I would love to see, some, maybe even like seniors in high school to at least be, or someone of a younger generation as well. So, that's almost adults, probably like a senior in high school or a freshman in college up at OIT, having them give us their point of view could be very powerful, the information that they're given, because that's another generation that's considered like the Generation Z now these days. I love to see that, the voices of the younger people in our community is what's gonna make our community later on. So if we want to talk about, how can we create this task force, that's one thing I would like to see is voices of the youth, the Gen Zs.
So we could open the floor. We could go ahead, Emma.
Oh, just along those lines, I was curious, Eric, using those kinds of demographic things as you talked about trying to set up the makeup of this committee. Like, are we allowed to say, no more than 10% of the committee can be white? Or is that even, or can we say we want 3 members on the committee to be under 30? Are those kinds of things not allowed?
Those are allowed by state statute with how cities can set up. So for example, we're doing a urban renewal authority committee here pretty soon. That's going to be advising council about the Spring Street URA. So the ordinance that will be before council at this next council meeting this next Monday says that there will be 4 property owners from the Spring Street area. So you're able to specify, we want, this representation based off of whatever category you like.
Well, that's good to know.
And that's something, again, that you'll be making as the task force a recommendation to council about how the committee is set up, but then council makes the determination, takes into consideration, then makes their own determination based off of that, the information you give them.
I think it gets, as far as the members and everything, just from my personal experience, I think can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
I think it just gets kind of sticky. It's just one of those things. I think we have a good group of people here. I mean, I've seen when we were out protesting and doing the Black Lives Matter, I mean, one of the biggest struggles we had was people vying for control. And I mean, these were people, that, I mean, a lot of them weren't minorities, to be honest with you. So, I mean, I don't know how to go forward or go about that, but the representation, I mean, some of the representation is going to be hard here, I feel, but, I'm really waiting to see what is the outcome of, this thing that we're doing now, and go from there to, take action and do different things with the community. This is my outlook.
Thinking about committees real fast, one of the stipulations, however, is that to be on a city body like a committee that we're talking about, you actually have to be a resident of the city of Klamath Falls. So unlike this group, you actually have to have a residence inside city limits. So that is a limitation that I should have started with that, and I apologize.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a good thing. I think, I think most people live here, are in the city limits or whatever. But, I mean, the diversity, I mean, it just depends how everybody thinks it should be laid out, personally. Diversity is kind of scarce at times, I feel.
Yeah, I have Rex's exact same concern that if we don't put something in place, that over time the equity committee, it's just rich white people have a lot more time for committees in general anyway. So like we might end up with an equity committee that's just a bunch of rich white people, and I think that would be a bad outcome. So I think we should try to take steps to avoid that from happening.
Yeah,
Discriminate.
I want everybody involved, but I mean,
It's not discrimination.
Kind of sounds.
protest really taught me something. Like it really got wild at one point where people were just like that really weren't representing what we were there for. Just kind of I forget what the word for it. Ally. A lot of these people were coming as allies, and that turned into like trying to control like the movement here, and it was wild. I mean, I kind of had to take a couple steps back.
You mind me asking Rec a question really quick?
Yeah, I mean, this is.
Rec, what's up? Hey, it's Chris Shaw, new guy here. Hey, how have the protests been since the initial one?
How have they been recently? Or
Yeah.
just like overall?
Well, just more recently, I suppose. Like, how has it gone?
To be honest with you, recently I haven't really been as much as involved. Well, I mean, as far as protests, I mean, I'm a black man, so I feel like I'm always going to be involved in that aspect.
Yeah.
But like I said before, there was a lot of just people vying for control. I mean, it was kind of like a movie. I mean, there's these people coming out with a little degree from this college or that college, and everybody, I kind of seen a lot of people were just trying to see it as an opportunity to like kind of gain a following. And
is this external of the core BLMers, or is this from within Klamath Falls kind of people?
this is in Klamath Falls.
Yeah.
And and then I seen, it's kind of hard because I was a person that was like, hey, well, what can we do in the community now? How can we assist the community and bring people together here outside of protesting? Now that it's kind of shifted and the momentum is kind of down, I'm like, okay, well, what can we do here? How can we bring everybody together? How can we help, kids? How can we bring culture? And to be honest, it's just kind of hard getting people, to work together, especially when they're not getting paid or, anything like that. So as of lately, I really don't know how it's going.
Yeah.
I've had hopes in the equity task force, that, we could come together and, be a lot more, cordial in different things and get stuff done. I mean, there was no blowouts or nothing. I just, when you get to a certain point in your life and you've seen a lot of things, sometimes you just know when to kind of step back.
Yeah.
What are you specifically asking about how protests are going? I haven't seen rec in a long time, but I'm there every single night. And
Yeah.
every single night, somebody drives by and yells, F Black Lives,
Yeah.
or F N-words,
Yeah.
or white power. Is that what you're asking? We've got a problem here. That's what I'm telling you. Every single night, that's what I deal with. Every
Chris,
single
How many,
night.
by how many
Six-
people, by how many people?
Do you
So,
want me to keep data on that too?
Sure.
so Chris, I know that as an observer for 15 minutes, I stood here
Mhm.
and seen people. I mean, every 10 seconds,
Mhm.
there was a negative people saying, fuck off, fuck
Yeah.
you guys, fuck minorities.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, we have an issue here.
Yeah.
I have
I
to
mean,
tell you,
I
I don't like it. I'm away from the BLM stuff.
Mhm.
I'm not a minority man.
Yeah.
And I took it very offensive.
Okay.
That people are not supporting what we're trying to do, the bigger picture. Okay?
Yeah.
To protect you, to protect her, to protect him, to protect me, to protect him.
Protect me from what?
Well, that's from
To
other
protect
people
our
that
community.
don't. So
Did anybody physically attack you?
I've had plenty of people attack me physically, Chris. So, I have to tell you-
At the riots? I mean, at the
Oh, no.
protest?
Different.
So not at the protest?
No.
You just told me that you just got attacked at the protest.
Oh, I've been attacked by a lot of people,
Yeah,
different races.
both of us.
I'm
So-
just having a hard time understanding, like, I like your resistance because I realize it's representative of our community,
Okay.
but I don't know that if, I don't know,
You have a hard time trying to figure out why.
I don't know how you got on the equity task force if you can't even recognize a problem like it felt like this was huge battle just to
I'm trying to gain
understand.
information and gain knowledge and gain insight, because that's what people do, and they talk.
Okay,
As
think
adults, we talk to each other.
we need
try to
on
figure
the
these
equity
things out.
task force, people who don't need that knowledge.
So
who
because
are already
I
wrong.
don't view, or I don't look at this the same way you do, I don't deserve to be on the task force, is that what you're saying?
I'm saying.
So I need you to say that out loud.
I'm saying that I would expect somebody who is on this task force to come
Listen,
with the
I am
desire.
100%.
You
for
aren't
helping
listening
this
to me,
community.
so
I'm
why should I
100%
listen to
Let her
for
talk.
helping
You
this
have not let
community.
me talk at all. No,
I
you're done.
love you to talk.
You cut me
I'm
off
giving
every
my-
single time. You cut everyone off. I'm
So,
done.
Okay,
what do we do on
my
that?
bad.
C? B or C? So identify existing equity stakeholders in projects, right? Because we're going to skip strategic framework for now.
I think it's worth having the discussion even if
Okay.
Wukai is not here.
Yeah.
I think that having a survey done objectively about the community, where it's at, where you all think the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats are, and but then also having an understanding about what organizations, what nonprofits, what community groups are already here, who will have a similar goal to you in your mission statement, right? Because you don't want to, you want to bring all those people together in a room, right? To all be coordinating on that work, right? Instead of, someone's over here doing this thing and then someone is over here doing that thing. So I think that was the idea. I can't remember who brought that one up, but these were all things that were brought up in the first two meetings. Because there was the brainstorm session in the
For
first meeting,
table fees.
and then the second meeting, there was everybody was gonna come and bring one thing that they wanted to, discuss or have the equity task force consider, the other members consider as a goal for equity.
Yeah, that's-
Maybe we could also talk about like the cross-cultural celebration. Rec had talked to us about, having June 10th as a celebration, and I had pitched to us, like each month there's different things that we could do as the task force, like a Hispanic Heritage Month, Asian American Month, there's all these national campaigns that we could do with the work of the person who's doing the city's social media stuff. That's what other communities I've seen on social media have been doing, and we could probably start with that. A couple of weeks ago, I kind of just Googled like a cross-cultural celebration monthly, and you get a list of stuff that we could just kind of tag along and say, hey, this month is dedicated to this, and maybe every other Friday just kind of do something on the city's Facebook saying this is this, this is that. Social media has a big influence in everyday society. You're on your phone a lot more than TV. People are on Facebook, people are on Instagram. You'll see these kinds of things pop up if you use the correct hashtag. I think I would love to see that as the city of Klamath Falls doing some kind of, monthly or every other month type of celebration. Maybe not a big celebration, but just kind of acknowledge this is this,
Whatever's Native American.
Yeah, so that's what I would love to see.
Greg, you had an idea, this was your idea, that's why I put it on here, this cross-cultural celebration idea. Did you have an idea, I think you were floating an idea to us about like some sort of festival or like street festival event or something? Can you talk more about that?
Yes, I had an idea in general, in the community as far as having a festival. I didn't know exactly how to package the festival, but I thought it was an idea that we could all build on, and go from there. But I think it's good to establish something, where, minorities or something can be proud of, whether they're Asian or Native or Black or whatever they are, to be proud of here in Klamath Falls, because there's nothing like that, so I'm open to build on the idea and do some stuff. I was trying to see where this was going to go, but yeah, I think it's very important, especially for children. A lot of us adults, like, I'm a Black man, I've been other places, and, I feel proud of who I am. But a lot of these children, I've seen, I'm just going to give an example, like Black children, they don't have any Black culture or culture to attach to, any pride, in who they are, or, or just bringing together the community in general, where we could celebrate each other and love each other.
Third Thursday kind of a thing then, maybe attach that or something,
Yeah.
or.
Celebration that month.
Yeah.
During that Thursday this month, we're celebrating.
Yeah.
I mean, that's.
So like the idea would be like, it would be like a themed third Thursday.
Absolutely, yeah.
So whatever month it is, so if it's Native Heritage Month is November.
And Hispanic Heritage Month is October.
Actually, let's see, so it would be based around that
Yeah.
culture.
But we could do something during the third
Thursday times.
because that's everybody. Yeah.
But usually, so I'm on the board for KFDA for third Thursday. It will be, we'll probably have to talk to like executive directors and the boards as well. They will have their own agenda of what third Thursday they want to do as that board. But we could probably have a booth there through the city of Klamath Falls, or as an equity task force booth, because third Thursday, I think 2 years ago, each month they had a theme of like walking or hiking or running. So it just depends on what the sponsors do. So I think it would be kind of harder for thought bodies to say, okay, let's just, have this theme, but Thursday's a totally different, entity.
Yeah, I was just saying like something in with Third Thursday.
Yeah, such as a booth,
Yeah.
or maybe, have something done at Sugarman's Corner or Climate Commons. So we could do that, but, it'll be really hard if, from my understanding of what you said was to get KFDA and the task force linked up to do.
I mean, another idea could be then a separate event, either monthly or maybe it's just like an annual, very, very large scale event. I mean, pandemic permitting, obviously, we're talking in a post-COVID world about things.
Even, the city having on their website today, this month is Native American month, there's activities that you can attend or, even glamorize the food that people are putting out. I don't know, so different recipes. I mean, that's what Blue Zone is big about, eating healthy. So they provide us that information.
Yeah,
Where to go, how to do it, with who. Well,
yeah, we could easily do that through, social media, I'm gonna be sending Eric this link here and maybe you could share it with everybody. It's just, a link from diversitycentral.com. Just, different heritage month. Maybe we could go from there. So February, concentrate on this, March, concentrate on this, so on and so forth. And then do something at the first, third Thursday for those, first 3 months, second, third Thursday for the middle, so on and so forth. So kind of having those kind of celebrations, to tie up.
and one of the things that really gets me for Third Thursday, I know I'm hooked on that, you can celebrate like musicians.
Yep, like through the music and the arts, yep.
So you could.
And
Just
I
ask
think
me
personally, it doesn't necessarily have to be like a black thing or a native thing, but we can kind of like have it as like a thing and implement the culture, through that way, because sometimes, when you just package it as like, hey, this or that or whatever, like, sometimes people have their guard up.
Yes.
Well, and I think when I hear you speak, Greg, I just think of everything that I left in Portland. In Portland, last Thursday or third Thursday or whatever, there was no official declaration. It's just that the community was inclusive and the streets shut down and there were Native artists and people who were Black and Hispanic, and it was just culture. It was nothing. It's just because that's the way we were. And so I think even for Third Thursday is a great example. The first Thursday that I went here, I was shocked because it felt like it wasn't about us. It felt like it was propaganda spreading. Like I didn't see any artists.
Well, so to let you guys know how Third Thursday formed was in the early 2000s. Third Thursday was actually an art walk. Now Third Thursday has just been more so like a farmer's market for people to come to downtown. That's with myself being on KFDA as one of the board of directors and then a business owner downtown. It was always kind of frustrating that people would say, I only come downtown because of Third Thursdays. And we're working so hard to make downtown a destination. But so the origin of Third Thursday was an actual art walk. Artists were painting outside. They had displays of were you around town when they had the big pelicans, painted pelicans out and about. So Third Thursday was an actual art walk before. However, through the different leaderships and organization, it's became, sometimes like a big farmer's market or a big artisan fair. So it just depends on the year and the funding. But yeah, Third Thursday has always been, the original concept was an art walk, and the art walk had kind of just became what it is now.
And I would hate to just throw that on the committee and say, we're the one who's thinking about these, and the equity committee task force should say, hey, let's get some musicians if we want. Maybe we have a little section. This is, the task force. Here's what we are presenting for you. I think that's what
So there's
I
also
can
like a
imagine.
committee, so there's also a committee for that, it's the promotions committee through a KFDA, maybe one of us could join on that committee, say, hey, I would love to see, some kind of cultural celebration, like, like it could be like dancers or, musicians, whatever that could be, and that is always done on, at Sugarman's Corner or Klamath Commons, so if one of us wants to tag on, I could give you guys Charlie's contact and you could go from there.
I just envision, I think that's what rec is trying to envision too, where it's just something we all come together and celebrate one another. And it's not,
There's nothing there for my culture, so that's why I don't go. I don't understand, so I just don't, because of it.
Yeah.
It doesn't wow me.
It wasn't what I expected.
No. So I'm just putting that out there. I'm just like, but we need to jazz it up and so everybody can feel included. That's why we're here.
Simple invitations
Yeah,
to
that's it.
underrepresented communities.
Why would it be worth that, trying to like get someone from KFDA to visit the task force? Because one of the other ideas that's not on here was there was kind of built into the idea of identifying existing stakeholders was inviting people to the task force.
Yeah, so I would even suggest reaching out to Darren Rutledge, who's like executive director, or even, oh my gosh, Nick Fair, who's the president right now, reach out saying, hey, we are doing what we're doing. Would you mind coming in to talk to us? At the last KFDA board meeting, I also kind of let the board members know this is what the task force is doing, because we're trying to also kind of put out a statement there of equity, and I had said, hold up, let's kind of figure out what the task force is doing so we could have some kind of correlation, because the city also helped fund KFDA in some way or another as well. So I think it would be a good idea for Darren to come, or you talk to Darren and say, hey, are there other stakeholders that have the same interests as us? And then go from there. So.
I just wanted to add that I love all these ideas. I love the social media idea, and I love the, getting together and having parties and being a presence at Thursday. And another thing we could do in coordination is try to get the Herald and News to do sort of features on these different communities so that we can just have like, oh, hey, let's meet some of the Black community in Klamath Falls and let's have that in the newspaper as a sort of part of the overarching project of just making minorities more visible in the community and less sidelined.
I like that. I like that idea a lot. And people at the paper. I know people at the paper. You could ask, say, hey, like, would you mind highlighting something like that each month? It doesn't have to be on a Sunday paper, but at least highlight something. Have that sense of culture to the readers.
I've been so impressed with Alex Schwartz there, the new reporting.
Alex is a part of the Right America program, right? So yeah.
What is that body, the Red America program?
So the Right America program is, it's a program where they find different students that just graduated school, and then they are brought out to like different communities to just, I think their contracts for a year and a half, just kind of work at different agencies, more so newspaper, somewhat like what is the word? Not a scholarship, but I can't find the word right now.
It's like an internship?
Yeah, it's like an internship. Yeah, it's like an internship. So that's what he's doing. There's a lot of those programs that work with Discover Klamath. KFDA also had somebody like that, but it's not under that right. I can't even talk right now. But yeah, it's some kind of internship.
So with in the kind of the part of the conversation we're on right now is just this list of ideas that you will be proposing to council at the end of the task force. Is there a desire to set future meetings maybe to two items at a time, and then we fully kind of develop these ideas? So instead of it just being kind of like a a bullet list of 50 items at the end. It's maybe like six or seven like really good ideas that are kind of fully fleshed out, and then the task force gives a presentation to council.
Yeah, I like that idea.
I think they just respond the strongest to like fully thought out ideas. So I think this idea of doing, embracing culture, I feel like that's just one item, right? And then it's a number of kind of sub items or action items like, the Herald and News, we had talked about who else, the city doing some sort of sponsorship or information blast about these like community events. So if it's like Native American Month, there's a bunch of links to information about what that means, and then local events that are happening in the community. And then maybe it's also, third bullet under this, embracing culture is then also some sort of event that you would all propose wanting to have happen. So maybe it's just, maybe it's an annual event, maybe it's approaching KFDA and seeing if you can get kind of, third Thursday come to kind of embrace this idea of, embracing culture further. I just think that council's going to be the most excited about these ideas if they're, presented as nicely and as exhaustively and refined as possible.
I have an easy one. I don't think we're not doing that now, but it seems like the second component to our very first step. I guess I'll save that for a later time when we're actually discussing our action items.
The floor is open.
Well, like a measure of excellence for fine dining, like a Michelin star, right? If we had a obviously voluntary program of commendation or recommendation to companies and businesses who have a commitment to diversity or equity.
Oh, I see. So as far as like the city's economic development strategy, so when we're recruiting businesses or growing businesses or things like that.
Yes, exactly, but also recognizing existing companies that have a commitment that they've already gone through the process of cultural sensitivity, diversity training. They have clearly defined diversity hiring program. They are a zero tolerance company when it comes to racism, racist behaviors. They have a zero tolerance for that, and they get their little equity committee, Michelin star,
A pledge
of diversity, of commitment, of inclusivity, so that all employees and customers know that this is a welcome place. For example, use Canvas Back Books. I'm blown away by them already.
Where is this?
Brand new place up on Main Street where the bike shop used to be. First of all, it says it on the website, but on her first day or first open weekend, her Facebook post said all of the normal stuff, and then she made an acknowledgement of the Klamath, Modoc, and Musqueam tribes on whose land we're on. Unbelievable how well that was received, just for her to make some simple acknowledgement like that. Obviously, she's going to be a business in this community that fosters inclusivity, is a welcome place for all people, right? She's earned her Michelin star. So
are you thinking that this would be, the recommendation to council would be some sort of recognition program of businesses who are meeting some list of criteria?
correct.
Okay.
Another person, this is just off topic, or maybe it could tie it in, but another person who we could also, as a stakeholder, talk to is Steven over at Lighthouse Yogurt. Steven also has a pilot program or an actual program called SAFE. If you go around downtown, you see like these little SAFE, stickers. So I think Steven will be a great stakeholder. Him and his husband, they're trying to be very involved in the community. He's gone out to different business and saying, hey, are you willing to put these safe stickers for people who don't feel safe? That's in the LGBTQ community or any demographic. You could go there and say, hey, I see that you are a quote unquote safe space. Can I just sit here or talk to you? So I think you stakeholders go and talk to Steven. Lighthouse Yogurt.
Simple little gestures like that.
Is that like a frozen yogurt place?
Yeah.
We have one in town?
Oh.
I honestly
You ever
don't know
been
that.
there?
I've been seeing you work out, working out, dude, don't stop. I see you down Washburn, you're all running. Don't do it, don't do it.
You know how many people talk to me about seeing me on Washburn running?
Yeah.
Ever, like once every 3 days, they're like, dude, were you the guy running on Washburn? Yeah, that was me.
So yeah, I think so, stakeholders, talking to Steve, and I could reach out to them or give you his contact. But yeah, he has that program and.
I mean, you all are the equity task force. You guys can approach these individuals and then invite them.
Yeah.
Schedule a meeting, start talking about these things as well. Because I think that would also help too. Because if you give council again like a kind of refined, comprehensive list of ideas that are well thought out, and then you're also identifying stakeholders as well in the community. Again, I think that that already means that there's potentially some buy-in from the community for those ideas, which makes it even easier for council to consider and develop further themselves.
And just to make sure I'm understanding, we're talking long-term, not trying to organize for the next meeting.
Long term, yeah, this is long term.
Okay.
Yeah. We have a marathon, dude. I don't want.
Okay.
We're having some really good ideas coming. I just think again that having a brainstorming session where we're getting all of these ideas out and then spending some time, like 4 to 5 months, really getting into the nitty-gritty details of what's going to make this feasible, what's going to make this successful, and then again presenting those before council. I think that would be the winning strategy.
Which is what I would assume we were doing. This was the first step.
Yeah, just brainstorming. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say something similar, just basically that I feel like the direction that our committee, or task force rather, should go might be influenced by how council receives this resolution. If they're really enthusiastic and they vote it in, it might be our kind of what work we want to do might look a little different than it will if they vote against it. I know I can't hear you.
We were silent.
We did the same thing.
We were silent, Emma. You're not going crazy, no worries.
My question is, let's just think hypothetically, if they accept it and they're like, wow, this is eye-opening to us, we weren't aware, then what do you think they're going to do?
Again, the scope of the task force is to recommend solution or to suggest solutions to equity in the community to council, and then also giving the kind of the framework ideas of what a permanent committee would look like that would then work with council to achieve some of these items.
Okay.
We're laying the groundwork.
Yeah, a lot of visioning.
Yes.
But the opposite, what happens if they don't approve? I mean, to me, it's so basic to me, but I was having this conversation with somebody in the community. It seems so easy for me to denounce racism and want to be a city that does better. But what if they don't?
But another thing is, most likely they will because they voted unanimous, oh, I can't even talk, but they voted for this task force, for this creation of the task force. So to do what we're wanting to do, so hopefully they would say, okay, yes, because they see it, right?
That's what I hope.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it should be so easy. And I'm terrified. We don't have enough data. We need people in there giving anecdotal evidence. We need, I'm really nervous about this. And it shouldn't be something, it should be just simple. It should be anybody in an elected position should be able to say, I denounce racism and we have a problem. If you've lived here for a year, if you've read one article in the Herald and News about our water issues, you should be able to see that.
And I think the city council sees that because that's why they created this, to make those hard questions, to talk to people. That's why they created us. And that's why I'm here. If it, anything else, I wouldn't be here.
That's why I'm here too.
I'm-
Like,
But just like Emma said, I am spread, I'm the token Mexican guy who's on every committee. I cannot make any more committees because I am on every committee because I want to make a difference for our community.
so I think what Emma said and what you said, it depends. Our future depends on what happens at the November 16th meeting. Our direction,
And
or at least our strategy, I should say.
I want to say something, and he said, you know, he was on a lot of committees. I hope I'm not cutting anybody off. He said he's a Mexican man. You know, me as a black man here, there's not a lot of, you know, black people here in this community at all. Like I said, probably before is like 2%. And, you know, a lot of the thing that I see a lot out here, there's more black children than there are black adults, I feel. And me personally, that's scary for me because, you know, these black children are growing up in a place, you know, where, you know, I've seen some of the things I've seen during the protests and some of the experiences these children have. So, you know, I know there's a bigger Mexican community and a Native community, but there's really not a huge black community here. And there's a lot of these children that are kind of like not spoken for, unfortunately. And I mean, I hate to say it, but, you know, a lot of these children are, you know, black children with, you know, here with their mothers. So I don't know if that's eye-opening to anybody, but that's just my 2 cents and something I've seen.
It's a pretty profound observation. I never thought of it until you just said it.
Yeah, so I mean, you normally you wouldn't think of it, but it's just, you know, especially me having a child now, you know, I was traveling, but I have to think about, you know, well, what if my son was left here without me? You know, was some of these kids are getting bullied and called names in school. Where does he identify with, you know, being black? And, you know, that's a scary thought because if you don't know who you are, you know, as a growing up, you know, I think that's very dangerous. But that's just 2 cents. I'm not trying to get off topic. I just thought of that.
Rick, do you have any genius ideas about what could create the kind of support you think they would need?
You know, like I said, the cultural events. I mean, I've been in school and I've seen like black student unions, and you know, I just think it goes in line with, you know, things we've done before, like things like, well, I've done or whatever, like Juneteenth, or just like those cultural events and celebrations. I think, and you know, I'm sure more ideas will come. Maybe there'll be something, you know, where we in the future, you know, we take, you know, minority kids or, you know, whatever else, and, you know, do stuff for them. I mean, I did stuff like this before when I worked for youth organizations, you know, but maybe something of that nature, you know, going and take them out, teaching them some history, you know, relating to them, anything, you know, it's just kind of hard, you know, because there's not many people, you know. When I was out protesting, you know, there was not a lot of black people out there protesting with me, you know, so it's something I just took note of.
Rick, you have a little bit more history than I do here. Are there any active black organizations in town?
No, I never heard of any. So I've always thought about, you know, having a union and things like that. But I think it's so few black people that I don't just want to make it a black, you know, I want it to, you know, like we are now, you know, Native Americans, Mexican, and everybody come together, you know, like that. But there's never been an organization here ever that I heard of.
Even OIT, there's not a black student union at all.
I'm not familiar with OIT. I'm not sure.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were a student.
yeah, that's something I've always thought about, would be great in this community, but,
Head it up, man. Like, why not? Rick, man, you sound like you have some ideas, obviously, on how to reach out to the local community, man. Go ahead and do that. Like, try to find out what those steps are to create maybe some, kind of community organization or something, man. Make it happen, dude, if you're passionate about it and trying to, bring out the local Black population of Klamath, man.
that's why, I'm here now and, part of the equity task force, because, a place for me to voice ideas because, when I was just trying to do it myself, people don't realize, this is a lot of work and this is very mentally draining, to tackle this race thing and do it here. I can't explain to you, all the different angles that I get hit with trying to do stuff like this. So that's why I'm part of the, happy to be part of the equity task force. So, I can tell other, beautiful minds and stuff that, I'm not just alone,
Eric, would you be able to facilitate or help him out?
Yeah.
Guide him on what to do to set up something? Or?
Yeah, I mean, so at RECA, I did hear that at one point, I guess the second NAACP chapter ever in Oregon's history was founded in Klamath Falls, but when I tried looking up information about that, nothing. So obviously it's not there's not a chapter here anymore. I will say that just kind of going back to the scope of the equity task force, the city's not in a position where they can start, Black organizations, or Hispanic organizations or Native organizations. But what we do have in our, government toolbox is we do have, a social media presence. We do have a regulatory presence. We do have the ability to potentially sponsor some sort of actual event, whether it be, again, an annual festival or, something that we're doing once a month. Yeah. That's within our capacity, man. But unfortunately, we can't. Us as government, I speak on behalf of the city. We can't just be, starting those sorts of organizations.
Yeah, and another thing that's hard to navigate, in this town, and I've said this a bunch of times, if I come from the angle of this is a Black organization, that causes a lot of problems here, just like Black Lives Matter. So, like I was saying before, it would be nice to have something that's not necessarily labeled as a race, but implement, different things.
Yeah, I was part of the Hispanic Advisory Committee doing something like that. I was part of the committee, but they didn't have the same vision I had because I don't think there was enough Latinos on that committee. They just focused on Cinco de Mayo, which is totally something different than, yeah, it was just, they focused on Cinco de Mayo and I did not like that.
Here
In Klamath Falls. So
there's no,
it was a great committee, but there was not, I think I was the only Hispanic.
what the fudge, dude?
So, but they had great intentions. They had their great intentions.
Are all nice and well and everything, but like, come on, what the freak?
Yeah. And so, and it happens like that, They had, other people had time, idle,
Another thing is, another thing is, I'm just like thinking, once Wakaya is back, I think Wakaya will be a really good resource for cultural celebration because that is his job at OIT. His job is for cultural inclusion for these students to feel welcome to be a part of the OIT community. So once Wakaya is back, he could probably talk more to us how we can go about with that.
I know a couple of years ago, they had big salmon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think that was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So that's, once Wakaya is back and actually, working with OIT, doing his stuff, we could probably talk to them and say, hey, Wakaya, what have you done that works here at OIT and other campuses? Because, up there, I'm just looking at the trail as our mascot, being a safe space as well. So I think Wakaya or even Josie up there could help us out with what we're wanting to do in the long run.
A lot of entities involved.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people. Before I really want to nail down, guys, I don't want to switch gears, but I really want to nail down the next, the community forum, identifying people to invite to the task force. You know, one of them was the sheriff, so we want to talk to them because they are in our jurisdiction that we can, right, the county, or the city,
The chief, we can invite the chief
Yes.
to the task force, but the city's not going to invite the sheriff to the task force.
Okay. So I don't know if you guys want to go and kind of say, hey, so for November, we can invite the chief. December, we can, probably Santa Claus. But I have a whole list of people I want to invite to get their point of view of their equity, hiring, just some questions. I don't know if you guys want to do that or continue talking about great ideas. But I'm thinking that if we can get our people booked in so they can make their schedule. Is that cool? No? Yeah? You guys can tell me to pound sand. I don't get my feelings hurt.
I like that idea. I like that idea a lot. Another thing is, after the meeting of when you guys presented to council, somebody had suggested talking to the Klamath KBVH. Has anybody reached out to Stan? Did somebody suggest that in an email, like contacting the Klamath behavioral health people?
I haven't, but I can.
So
I have to look back to, I know we talked about.
I don't know if anybody, we've had dealings with them. Well, I've had, well, not personally, but when I was working for an organization for the youth, we had a lot of dealings with KBVH or whatever it's called. And I don't know. I don't know. There were some difficulties. I don't really remember what it was. You know, one of the main things I've seen here is like there's all these organizations or different things, and everyone's in competition for the funding. You know, so that makes it sometimes new things or what you're doing hard to navigate, I feel. A lot of the organizations or nonprofits were like very much in competition with each other because everyone's trying to get this funding or look like the best organization who's doing the most good so they can get the dollars to get the power. And I think that's a big problem in this town in many ways. And it's almost like they're so busy playing that game that they're detached from the people. I'm trying to go attach myself. I'm trying to go with the people.
Well, Rick, you do have the opportunity to, you know, as an equity task force member, try and get some of these organizations who are working on the same thing together in a room to kind of talk about equity and what the solutions might be, where they might be, you know, help them identify with, you know, your all's perspective on areas that they might be able to work together.
Do you mind me asking, who are you going to invite, Ruben?
So, some people that I wanted to invite, I know we talked about this, you know, the chief, sheriff, if possible, if anybody has it, the district superintendent, maybe their HR is who I wanted to invite. Well, and Darren Rutledge got on my list, you know, just what I want is to have people know that we're here and we're here to help navigate any kind of things in their, you know, districts or their companies. We can help them out. I also had a big note saying, you know, we have the same questions for all of them, so it's equitable for everybody to answer the same questions.
So maybe the discussion that needs to happen is a comprehensive session where you all sit down and talk about, again, identifying all the community stakeholders, and then there's a separate conversation, which is what questions do you want to ask all of them?
I don't want to get them on
Because
the
then,
defense.
because then you have data, then you have the ability to understand, you know, what their scopes of influences are, what the things they're working on are, what they've considered, what they haven't considered yet, which, you know, empowers you with the information to be able to maybe make some recommendations or see some areas where everybody can kind of get together.
And empower them. I mean, that's empower us to empower them.
That's democracy, is bringing everybody into the room and being able to talk.
It would be a huge task, but of your group, like, I would love it if Monica Yellow Owl could do a diversity training, or they have another thing, a simulation experience. It's basically it would be walking those stakeholders through the life of a person who's poor and not white. It's a pretty eye-opening experience. I haven't sat through it myself, but I think it's a 2.5 hour thing. But then they'll dominate the time, so that might be a secondary or down the road.
Or special meeting
projects.
I mean, that's.
Or a special meeting. But no, it's something that those are the type of people that we want immersed in that sort of experience.
And my big fish is maybe this is a tall task. Our political system has been trying to do this, is sit, we have a big water issue throughout the whole year. We can sit some members down and talk instead of let's do this to make them look bad, or let's do that to, if we can sit these main players down and say, okay, we're the task force, we're here to help. Tell us what you perceive out of this whole thing.
Mediation.
Yeah.
Some sort of.
I mean, this came up in my son's office. It's a law office, and that would be like, we would be the token people in the whole world if we figured it out for everybody. But just sitting people down is the first step. Yeah, absolutely. Let's mitigate. What do we want? What are we doing? We're dividing our community.
So I think this is
It's a tall task.
I think this is identifying the water issue as a separate item, maybe to suggest to council, that would be different from the kind of stakeholder engagement list.
Okay. Yeah,
Because it would just be different, right? If you're
Yeah.
if you're talking to our chief, the superintendents, Darren Rutledge, maybe some staff at Oregon Tech, you're asking them about what are you doing about equity in our community. But with the water stakeholders, it's specifically around equity as it relates to the water issue. So maybe that's an item that you would recommend to the council as I think it's worth developing for sure, but I think that might be one of those things where you identify who the stakeholders are. You maybe make some recommendations about what mediation looks like. Maybe you say that the committee, the permanent committee, maybe that's like one of the first items that they're going to be working on. Is how do you get here are the stakeholders that you need to bring in the room, and here's some strategies that the equity task force is recommending to see mediation.
And that's a tall task. I mean,
That'd be super cool though, man.
That's the biggest problem.
That's
The biggest
huge.
problem.
That's why we are here. Mostly all of us are here because we face that dilemma all the time, every day of our lives.
Racism in Klamath exists because of our water issues, and honestly, our water issues exist because of racism, because irrigators in the districts are too blinded by racism to see the solutions. And so I know it seems like it's a side deal, but it really is the biggest issue.
I do understand the equity dimension. I'm just saying that I think this is a separate issue than trying to identify all the equity stakeholders.
Bringing them in, talking to them, kind of seeing how we can empower them, they can empower us. Yeah. So if we can get like a calendar of November, if we want to talk to the chief, or I just want to set people up once a month so they can come in and talk for.
So something I think that would be worth asking you all about is on this water issue, are there other issues similar to the water issue, not around water, that there's potentially some racial tension that exists that might be. So then it's the one item it is that would be for council is mediation, issues that need mediation surrounding this idea of equity. There's water, and then maybe there's some other issues that are similar to that. Are there in the community? That's what I'm asking you all.
I think that's the biggest, but you run me to my third action item, or my fourth, is that we have an equity liaison, basically, to bring mediation through, and whether that's a person and behind them has somebody of legal experience, but that actually my fourth item. To mediate just any discrimination in all forms, basically.
Okay.
That people are unable to resolve otherwise.
That's a great.
Let's talk after. I think I got a person.
So are you envisioning the recommendation to council would be consider hiring someone, like the city would hire someone to mediate around issues? Is your recommendation essentially, is it a permanent staff member or is it just an individual who would come into the community to work on specific items, and then it would be?
They would have other duties, but it would be, let me read my notes, but basically, they would be there as maybe a first resort, but I was thinking of the last resort in if you were discriminated against in housing or in employment or in healthcare for whatever reason. It's not quite escalated to the level of a lawsuit, and maybe it can't be, but it still needs addressed and action, and then that's where this full-time person, but this full-time person, you know, it might be somebody that's in one of us, but no, we would obviously need an attorney behind that to do the mediation.
Is there kind of like a model, or are you seeing that other cities have done this?
No, that was just my
Okay, just
idea.
my-
I mean, it seems like it's a basic idea, it's probably out there.
Yeah, again, I don't mean to shoot you down by any means, I just wanted to see if there was.
Framework. Look at.
See, they would be also involved in the process of accommodation, the recognition or certification or the accommodation of the companies that have the diversity action plans or get their Michelin stars. It's where we can go if we are having a problem with racism, if we are discriminated against a job, if we are, I have a protest friend who, I think I shared this last time, and we're stuck. What do? He heard his boss tell a group of coworkers, I hate that N-word. And now, that was his second moonlight gig, he doesn't care. He's gone, he's not at that job anymore. But now his primary job, they brought a person back who they had issues with in the past, based with racism, the person was racist. And his boss is unable to deal with it. I think that was his exact words. I don't know what you want me to do about it, when his other coworker called him an N-word. Well, that's a situation where this guy needs help. He doesn't have money for a lawyer. He needs to come to the equity liaison, and we need to provide those.
So maybe somewhat like a service of what the ACLU does,
Somewhat
something
like
like
an
that.
affiliate, yeah, a local. It's not necessarily punitive, it's like, you know, it's wake up, we have a problem here.
You know, and by the time we hear that, I mean, they've already quit their job. They found another job, and then they're like, you know, saying, okay, I'm kind of venting. You know, now you have an organization to come and talk to you about it before you decide to quit your dream job or something like that. I mean, things like that can happen.
Well, the guy's now jobless, like, because two back-to-back issues of racism. This is not a fault, this is going on right now.
So I know this is all like up in the air until we get, you know, everything passed. I have to tell you, Emma, you guys, we did a great job at the city council. As a grown man, I was very nervous that they were just gonna tell us to, you know, this is not the way we want it. Obviously, this is what they want. And I know when we start inviting people, I want them to know we're an equity task force, one unit, all of us. And that we do have, you know, we want to invite them to maybe a committee, future committee, and just ask them questions that to our understanding, and gather information and data. So that's my reason why we start booking people right now, then they can have time to say, okay, who's the equity task force? Who the heck are the members? And they can get that information from Eric. So Ruben uses all the gel, so don't come in with the gel. Just information, because they're going to want, like, they're going to show up to an equity task force, which is already intimidating enough. You know, they're going to ask me questions, which is, they're going to get on the defense. But we don't want that. We want to make sure they have and we're all working together, and that's why I want to, if we could start telling, have the sheriff, I'm not sheriff, but the chief come in our next meeting, kind of tell them, hey, this is who we are, we're here with you guys.
So on the idea of list of stakeholders that you'd like to interview or approach or have a discussion with, if I make a Google Sheets list, would you all mind filling that out with, individuals you'd like to talk to, what organization they represent, and then potentially some contact information, just so we have a concrete list developing of who you all would like to approach. And then I think even before you approach them, I think there needs to be a discussion about what do you want to discuss with them? What are the questions? I think you had mentioned that you want to have the same questions for all groups that you'd be talking to. I think that's a great idea. But I think that we need that's an idea that we just need to develop a little bit further before. Just sort of some structure.
That's a great idea, the Google Docs or the Google Sheets. I think that's a great way to handle it. I do like the idea of having Chief Hensley in soon-ish, maybe even as our first guest. Probably because I'm a little concerned about the election and possible protests, and I really do want to hear from him about
What'd you say?
what his
Chief Hensley. Yeah. If the task force would like, I could reach out to Chief and see about his availability for the next meeting, if you would like. Since Emma, you said that you would want to talk with him sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I would vote for having him at the next meeting, in part because of the sensitivity around the election and protests, and I think there's some urgency. But of course, I also just have questions I'm dying to ask him, so that's part of the reason.
Is it worthwhile, because our next meeting isn't going to be until after
The election.
Is it worthwhile reaching out to Chief Hensley now, as in tomorrow, and asking him what is the post-election results plan to keep Klamath safe?
That's a great question, Joy. I was actually going to ask that tonight. How are people feeling about the election and the safety of people around town, and the safety of protesters if they do come out, if there's some kind of public protest? Is this something we want to move on before the next meeting? Yeah, I have the same question.
Yeah, get them on as soon as possible.
Yeah, so the difficulty is obviously the election is next Wednesday or Tuesday, which is way sooner than I have been so disconnected from national politics. Local politics is my job. So I think it would be difficult to schedule an in-person meeting with him between now and then. I'm trying to think of ways we could do this. If you just wanted to just ask that question and have an answer. Honestly, the best way is probably to just reach out to him via email. He's pretty responsive. He's not going to not answer you. But as far as if it's a task force thing, what I could do is, I could just email him myself and ask, hey, the task force would like to understand what your plan is following the election. Could you speak to that? And we could do it over email.
Awesome. Yeah, it's simple.
Would that be okay?
To address the election issues, yes, but Emma has long-term questions.
Right, but we could still reach out to Dave, Chief Hensley, and ask him if he wants to come next meeting.
I like that plan. Inviting him to the next meeting, and then also asking him if he could comment on whether he has any particular plan to keep the community safe if there are post-election demonstrations on either side of it.
Yeah, I just think that question around the election would need to be asked tomorrow, and I would have to email him tomorrow to get that information back to you for it to be relevant, because the next meeting is the 21st, or sorry, no,
The 18th.
the 18th.
Yes.
So-
So you'll email him then?
Yeah, and then I'll just copy all of you, send it to all of you. But is there still a desire to invite him here to just speak with him and have a conversation with him just about equity generally in the community?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so there's 20 minutes left on the clock for this meeting. Do you all want to work on a list of questions that we would be asking him, and just kind of all stakeholders moving forward? Just so then it's a little bit, then it's well thought out, and it will be there'll be some consistency moving forward. I mean, obviously, you might want to refine some of your questions after you know,
Due to whoever's there.
right, but, yeah. So what I can do is I can just pull up a blank Word document and we can all hash out what questions we'd like to ask. You'd like to ask Dave? All right. Emma, are you seeing this blank document or do I need to change it?
I'm still looking at the draft resolution.
Okay, I am changing it. Right, do you see it now? All right,
Simple questions like, I mean, not in order, maybe we could put them in order later.
sure.
How is your hiring process, or what does your hiring process look like?
I'm assuming you want to know more like, is he actively searching for,
Yes,
trying to build diversity or?
and that's what I was going to do, you know, kind of a, yes.
Actively recruiting diversity hires.
No pressure spelling words.
We're not judging
Right.
Judy, man, you're doing a great job, I'm glad you're not saying, Ruben, do it. Because we'd be,
See, look at that. Diversity.
Yeah, we're just looking for.
So I interview people for a living.
Oh.
Practically. And one thing that I find that if there's an interview where there's a little bit of like perhaps some nervousness or tension, as there may be in some of these, asking a question that establishes that we're all on the same team can go a long way. So I would have an early question that would be, what do you think are the biggest challenges around equity are in our community, and what are your thoughts on what are the solutions? I think that's a good thing to start with, so that they don't feel like they're being grilled, because that's not the intention, right? We're not trying to like grill people.
And what was the second question, part of that? What do you think the solutions are?
Yeah, what do you think that, do you have any hot solutions for us?
another question is, do you, what are your, what's it called? Diversity training look like? Do they have diversity training? Do they, cultural sensitive
Like a
training?
diversity and an inclusion, like kind of like training or like handbook, or that would.
Or any kind of training? I mean,
Cultural
that's
sensitivity. yeah.
cultural sensitivity.
Training.
Or even if they don't, so, if he says, well, we don't have one, that's great, if you guys can point me to one.
This is very off topic, but I was just thinking about, do y'all remember in what year is this, 2020? 2018, there was that big issue at the Basin Transit System. Yeah, so maybe we could also, this is not Licton City, but see what they did, because I know they paid somebody to come in to do cultural sensitivity training and see what was the results of that. I knew that gentleman or whoever, that person got fired from that position. Yeah, a woman got fired from that position, so see what, that entity has done in our community, how that training has gone through. But
So that's a question, so that's add Basin Transit Authority to the list of stakeholders?
yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure
Sorry.
But you brought up another question for Chief Hensley is, does our police force have a culture to police the police? If we have bad apples in our police force, are the good police officers in a position to report on that?
Like internal investigations or something like that.
That's a tough one.
culture of accountability, is that what I'm trying to phrase it however, I just don't want to put words in y'all's mouth.
Would an officer, I would want to ask Chief Hensley, would an officer on your force feel comfortable coming to you if he observed an incident of racism from another police officer?
That's a good question. Obviously, he's gonna say yes, but in the back of his mind is gonna say, ooh, maybe not. Because they're basically snitching on each other, and that's a brotherhood. And brotherhood's not to do that.
Well, that's the whole eradicating systemic racism.
Exactly. I'm just saying that,
Yeah.
you're a police officer 5 years, you're still at the bottom of the totem pole. Yeah, that's a tough one. But maybe he does have an answer for that. Anonymous,
And then, so in what Ryan was bringing up is the correcting of the problem using BTS as the example. How have they corrected it? That should, in theory, be a success story, right? Like,
So would a question to all of the stakeholders be, name an instance where you've had racism or discrimination as a problem, how have you resolved it? And see if they are able to speak to that, is that the idea?
Yeah, sure, why not? I mean, that's at the root of what we're trying to get to, essentially.
Now with Chief Hensley, I also want to ask him specifically about what kind of steps he has considered taking or could consider taking to improve the sort of atmosphere of safety around protests in the downtown, with specific reference to the May 31st incident. I want to ask him about that, and sort of how he has thought about trying to prevent something like that from happening again.
Emily,
I'm so
sorry about that. Emily, you haven't had any interaction with Chief Hensley since the first protest?
Myself, no.
Yeah, okay.
Other than just small talk at the city council meeting.
And you're talking about all these dudes that were carrying around the AKs and saying they were protecting, is that what you're?
Yeah. That's
Okay.
right. I heard, I have this, people who I know who are not white say that they felt really unsafe at that time. And that's something that's been concerning me ever since, because I don't feel like our community really ever resolved that. And there was no real message sent to the people who came downtown that like, thanks, but no thanks, don't do that, please.
Mhm.
And that's what I'm really concerned about, especially around the election and just in general. I'd like to hear from him about if there's, obviously, you can't tell people not to open carry downtown. That's their legal right.
Mm-hmm.
But the question is, how does he create an environment or an atmosphere or send a message that he doesn't need a bunch of armed backup from the citizenry?
How do you want to phrase that question? No,
I'll definitely take some input from the rest of the committee on this. I don't want to go full as reporter on him. I just want to, I guess I would phrase the question as, how have you thought about the atmosphere of safety around protests downtown since the May 31st incident? What's your thinking on that, and is there anything more you can do?
what is your thinking about the atmosphere of...
And Emma, you're right. It was a very safe protest until people start toting their guns. There was word to Antifa and all that stuff, but nothing came about. But it was a non-violent protest, which could have went sideways real quick. That's the questions I want to ask him too, but I don't want to be too much of a jerk.
What's the question?
No, I'm just thinking out loud. It's kind of what she was saying. What you're thinking about the atmosphere of safety downtown with protests following that May 31st.
it exemplifies racism. It exemplifies why we're here. That still just hurts me that incident happened 48 hours after the entire town shut down for 5,000 tractors. And natives were told, don't go downtown, it is not safe for you to be there. And the conversation they had with Chief Hensley moments before is, if a group of brown people tried to protest, it would never happen, would not happen. This town would not shut down for a group of brown people. Little did I know, 48 hours later, we would be protesting and that would happen.
I mean, so speaking from the city perspective, we have a permitting process for protests with groups that are above 60 people, and we're not actually allowed to discriminate based off of race, right? We are only allowed to approve based off of certain indicators, right? So if it's, I think if it's a group of over a certain amount of people, then we ask that there's security provided by the group filing the permit. But I mean, that might be a thing that we might be able to that you might be able to investigate as a task force, saying, looking at the city's policy, it's not the county's, obviously, we can't control that, about allowing protests.
Well, and that was sort of an interim time. We weren't even issuing permits because of COVID. So all of this was just willy-nilly.
I see.
So, I mean, to me, to people who question whether or not Klamath Falls has a racism problem, I can't think of anything more blatant. And I can't, like, you want data? 10,000 tractors driving down Main Street, no problem. A small group of Black, brown, and allies tried to rally for social justice, and this town armed themselves with guns. To me, that's all you need to say about passing this resolution. I think. Like, sorry, that's a huge wound. That's a big wound.
That's why we're here.
Yeah.
Hoping to heal some wounds and.
Were there other questions that you wanted to have for Dave Hensley specifically?
Emma's got a list. Emma, do you have more?
Well, I mean, we could ask him also about the kind of data he collects about arrestees and so on, and maybe that's kind of a logistical question, but obviously that's the kind of data we want to look at, whatever he can share with us, and maybe we can have a bit of a conversation about what kind of data they can collect, whether they can collect more useful data going forward.
I completely forgot, Joe, you brought up something a couple weeks ago about the juveniles, about like in the high schools and things like that. Suspensions and things like that. Is there a way to collect that data as well?
There is.
And I just, outside of
But it would
this,
be,
just really
so
talking
again,
about that.
that's information that we could obtain through a freedom of information process, but it's not information the city has access to. Because the city
Just
doesn't
another
collect
county
data.
thing.
Yeah. But that is information that you should be able to.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, you know, I work with the city and county first, and I would kind of be, I don't know, I wouldn't feel right asking for that for our safety guy because of what, if we use the data, I'm just gonna stop.
Wait, so you can obtain the data then?
Well, I think anybody can talk, I'd rather have somebody else.
It could
do
put
it.
his job at risk.
Oh, I got you. It's a conflict of interest.
Yeah, it is a conflict, and if somebody else asks for it, I think that would be fine.
I will pursue that again. I'm writing that assignment. I hit a wall at the tribes. Apparently that report is now, I don't know, everyone's telling me, go here, go here, go here. The latest I got was to go back to the school district. So I will put that on myself
Just contact
to
me.
contact them.
I'll give you contact to the person who you should talk to.
And so we might have to add that addendum to the
list of,
to the pitch, to the information deck that was sent to the city council. If that comes in, is it too late to add that reporting and what the reporting were?
I see what you're saying, yeah.
If we can still add that, or?
What I would do is I would just send an updated version to council for their consideration. Because it wasn't part of the staff report, it was just part of the information that you all shared with me, or that Emma had collected, and I shared with him. A question on so I know, so we've decided that you all want to ask Dave about the data he collects on arrests. Do you want me to wait on requesting data from the police department until after you've had a chance to talk with him?
No, get that right away so we
Okay.
can dig into it. And then if,
Right.
if we see patterns that are concerning, we can talk about it with Chief Hensley.
All right.
And I think one of the questions is for when there's a language barrier, what does he do? I mean, this is from a Spanish speaker who did not know English until second grade. So that language barrier, what do you do when there's a language barrier? I mean, do you just cuff them and take them? I mean, until you find an interpreter, or do you, and that goes along with the hiring practices. I mean, are you hiring Mexican Americans who speak Spanish? That could be cool.
It's a good one though. I mean, maybe they're offering language programs we don't know about.
Yeah, that's, maybe, is that a study? Yeah.
Police Academy for 5 extra weeks.
Dude, oh man, your mind, it's just not cool. It sucks.
Other questions?
That's all. I can't think of.
Okay.
I think those are good.
This is a good list for everyone?
Yeah.
And then these questions could also be used to other stakeholders that we talk to, just kind of slightly modified, you know.
Right.
Can we make another living Google document to what we
Yes.
add? Yeah.
So what I will do is tomorrow morning, because I'm not going to do it
Google
tonight.
Ping right here, Google Ping.
Yeah, I will send out a Google link to you all with a Google sheet with a list of all of the stakeholders you'd like to talk to that you've discussed so far, and then a list of questions, like just a standard questionnaire for anybody to add or edit the questions that we've already kind of put on this document.
Understanding that those are probably pick and choose, like add all the possible questions we could possibly ask, but
Yes.
knowing that not every stakeholder we're going, that's just
Ask all.
our menu of questions, our canned questions.
All right.
So these are all the ones we agreed for.
So we'll just operate off of this. If I can get Dave to come next meeting, I'm sure he'll say yes. All right.
And maybe that last question with language barrier, that will determine how many Spanish-speaking officers he has, and maybe he needs to recruit more. Maybe that's a good empowering question for him. If he wants to, if it does. But yeah, that's what I wanted to put in place, you know, Chief, for November, for December, I want to bring somebody in, let them know we're here, we're out ready to help any way we can. If we can, you know, do 3 months at a time, that would be, so we can contact the people or the entities that we want, the stakeholders. I just want to think that.
All right. Was there anything else today? You have 2 minutes. Yeah.
So my other just thought process is, so will he come at the beginning of the meeting or towards the end? Because on the 16th will be city council's meeting, right? So we should probably have some time to discuss how to move forward with what happened on that previous Monday. So would you want to invite him at the beginning of the meeting or at the end? You know, because I think we should discuss whatever happened on the 16th on the 18th.
How long would the task force like to discuss the November 16th meeting?
Probably
I think
like,
we're a lot longer to discuss it if they don't vote for it.
So it's pending. So maybe just in respect of Dave's time, maybe we push this out to either hold an additional meeting or move it to the December meeting.
Yeah, we can get them up December when it's nice and crazy.
As long as we get the email sent tomorrow to get a statement on his safety.
The
plan.
election.
yeah, because I think
Thank you for
the
reminding me of that.
16th is, you know, that is a big date. And either or which way it goes, we will still need to discuss how to move forward with what's going on. So I think that, we should spend some time, maybe even at the beginning, and then have him come instead of at 5:30, come at 6:30 or 7 o'clock.
As long as we can book him for a definite amount of time next meeting, I'm comfortable, but I don't want to have a situation where we invite him here and then.
And he's waiting.
Yeah, he's waiting for 45 extra
Yeah.
minutes.
I think at the end of somebody's workday, like, it's really nice for me, like, end of my workday is 5, I come here at 5:30. I can't unwind yet, so he's kind of on, work mind.
Still got it on.
Yeah, he's still, and he's like, okay, I'm still at it, give him an hour questions. And that's, I think really that, to get him in and out, and then we can debrief what we said. And
So, beginning of the meeting or?
I think the beginning, who votes beginning? I'm gonna thumbs up 5:30, 6:30?
Either or, we just need a, half.
Yeah, I just need a time.
What do you think, Emma? Rec, 5:30 to 6:30?
I like having him at 5:30, and then we can take as much time as we want to digest
That's
what
it.
happened at the city council meeting afterwards.
All right, so I will ask him to show up on the 20th. What's the date? I don't want to say it wrong. The 28th, from 5:30 to 6:30. And then I will send a reminder out to everybody. I'll send a confirmation email out that he accepts the invitation. And then we'll just need to make sure that everybody's here at 5:30 just to be respectful of his
Yes.
time. I don't want to waste his time. Yeah. All right. Is that it for today?
Cool.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Hey, thanks, guys.
All right.
Thank you.
And then maybe on your Google Doc. You can put a.
Sorry, I gotta run. I gotta go.
Hey, have fun.
Yeah, people say
Your
why-
day is not done yet.
No. What's the best way to exit this door?
You probably want to go out the.
The doors that we've gone out.
Yes.
All right, we'll touch base in 5.